Again, I want to thank Trinity. What a wonderful thing to allow me to do this. And I'm at the point in life where I want to share. Everything I got, I want to give you the keys to the kingdom. So we're going to just go through some stuff. We as physicians are taught to ask what's wrong. And this is okay. The problem I had is easily half the patients came through my door. I knew they were sick, they knew they were sick, and their tests were textbook midline normal. Common in females. And the response we as physicians, oh, honey, you're under stress, take some Prozac. You'll gain 20% of your body weight, but you won't care. That's really a good therapy. So I had problems with that. So I'm gonna start with a story about a patient I had named Jack. Jack was a spiritual giant in my life. When Jack walked in the room, you knew something was different. He just was he was the kind of guy that when you talk to someone, they can't wait for you to finish so they can talk. That wasn't Jack. He listened and thought about what you said, and then he responded. So Jack would see his medical doctor and get some blood work, but he always brought his blood work into me because there are normal ranges and then there are optimal ranges. And I over the years, I just developed a system where I squeeze those together. Kids are different than adults. Adults are different than geriatrics, and men are different than women. That's why I'm the doctor. Men are different than bad joke. My wife would have laughed at that if she were here. So he brought it in on a Tuesday, and he said, hey, I'm dropping my blood work off. I'll set up an appointment. I said, Jack, I got one more patient. Just hang in the office, and I will look it over, and we'll go over it. And I'm looking over his blood test, and and I said, Jack, what did Dr. Mike say? And he said, Dr. Mike said, I wish my blood work was this good. And I said, Jack, not only is it good medically, in my scale, it is absolute textbook midline perfect. This blood work is outstanding. It's the best blood work you've ever had. That was a Tuesday. On Thursday, he was jogging in Queenie Park and he was dead before he hit the ground. And I get teary about it just thinking about it because he was such an important person in my life. He just had a spirituality about him that I was so impressed. And I lost it. I thought, what good am I? This is a dear friend, someone that meant so much to so many people. I got to change, I got to have a paradigm shift. And I got to quit looking at what's wrong and ask what's not right. So this is the basis of the talk today. We're going to go through what's not right. And let's move forward. That's me. Wow. So all those places you can get a hold of me, Shape Reclaim, Todd Frisch, and then I wrote a book called Why the Face, which we'll talk about. Hopefully I'll have time to do a diagnosis on someone, if someone will volunteer. I love to let people volunteer. So I love this quote by Arthur Schopenhauer. I think that's Italian, isn't it? All truth passes through three stages. First, it's ridicule. I was laughed at, I was ridiculed. As a physician, I got called quack, all kinds of things. Second, it's violently opposed. The crap that came down on me, trying to turn me in for doing stuff that was not illegal, but they didn't like what I was doing. And then third, it's self-evident. People come and listen to me speak, the same ones that complained about me. Whoops, don't want to do that. So when I started in practice, I was labeled a quack. I didn't like that, but I was helping people, and when you help people, you can take some of those hits, and I was okay with it. And then the great and wonderful Oz, not Dr. Oz, but the great and wonderful Oz, although maybe it is Dr. Oz, I don't know. They said, well, we're alternative medicine, which means you can choose this or you can choose this. And then we didn't go away, and they called us complementary. And then we all went to CAM conferences, complementary and alternative medicine. And then they changed to integrative medicine. They began to integrate us. The great Oz said, come to me. And now it's functional medicine. We have the Institute of Functional Medicine, which is a wonderful facility that supports vaccinations, and I lose my mind over that crap, how they can do that. But we'll leave that alone. I don't like any of those. Here's what we should be calling what we do. Restorative medicine. We need to restore people back to a place they should have never left in the first place, correct? This is logical. I love that term. So we're going to talk about restoring people back to health. So I'll give you a case study. This is a real patient of mine. Female, 45, irregular cycles, diagnosed with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and depression. Find some tests that confirm that. You know, it's almost funny. You know, she had irritable bowel syndrome too, which is like, yeah, doctor, what does that mean? It means your bowels are irritable. Well, thank you for qualifying that. So she had headaches, gas and bloating, and nuggets. I like to throw things out that after 40 years of practice, if a patient complains of gas and bloating, the clue is the first letters, G and B. It's a gallbladder problem. Have them drink lots of pure apple juice, which is high in malic acid, which will thin the bile. And if you got real puffy up here, that's a gallbladder symptom. If it's a female that's real puffy up there, be careful of internalizing anger. And we'll talk about all that in facial diagnosis. Scary thoughts, is it not? Increased nighttime urination, insomnia, weight gain, and she had these weird rashes that migrated, and every test was normal. So honey, obviously you're deficient in Prozac, right? If I were female and a doctor called me honey, there would be testicular problems in the room. Just saying. So here's my philosophy in health, and it's the dis-ease model. It's not disease, but there's a hyphen. There's a disharmony. We start healthy, live a nice long life, and end at death. Don't want to be first in line, have no fear of death. I love my creator. I'm looking forward to meeting him. I just don't want to be first in line right now. So we go through 3 phases. Qi is a Chinese medicine term. Traditional Chinese medicine means life force or life energy. No major symptoms. You don't feel bad. You just don't feel right. Water phase is the next phase. You've got symptoms. Nobody can figure out what's going on. The blood phase is now the blood tests begin to show abnormalities. But just think about this. You got to be 2/3 sick before medicine sees anything wrong. That's a lot wrong. That's a lot wrong. So we're going to look at this water phase. And we can use terms like yin and yang. I took that out of the lecture just because people get confused on that. Well, I thought that was yin and that's yang. And, no, I learned it this way. Whatever. We're going to call it expansive and contractive. So there are symptoms that are contracting: dry, hot, spasm, constipation, obviously contracting, depression, wet, cold, muscle laxity, diarrhea, or at least gas and bloating, and of course anxiety and anger. So do you have to be on one side or the other? No, you can actually have what we refer to as a damp heat syndrome. What does that look like in the real world? How about athlete's foot? How about asthma, jock itch, vaginitis? Those are all damp heat syndromes. And they have a unique and very difficult to treat because they're on both sides of the spectrum. There are foods that will be influencing this. Foods that are contracting, salt, you throw salt on meat, it'll shrink it into jerky. We all know about the high proteins, the ketogenic diets, and all these things. You do the Atkins diet and all the weight loss that comes with it because it's contracting. The moment you come off that program, what happens? You expand because the body is going to go the other way. Cheese constipates people, eggs, tobacco if you smoke it. Things that are expansive make you fat or make you dizzy. Sugar, alcohol, drugs, chemicals, coffee, and tea. This is the black China tea, not the herbal teas. Now, we go from the dis-ease model to what I call the target of health. Again, we as physicians are geared and taught to shoot for the bullseye. But let's go back to my patient, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and depression. Doctor, what are you going to treat? Well, I don't know, I'm going to give him Prozac, right? Well, no, that's not right. So let's go to the outside circle pH. This is about potential of hydrogen. Are you acid or alkaline? The majority of people that are out of whack here are going to be acidic. Matter of fact, the majority of people are acidic. So what happens when you're acidic? When you're acidic, you steal minerals to buffer the acid. Where do you think you're going to steal those minerals from? Bone, exactly. Is that a contributor to osteoporosis? Absolutely. Osteoporosis, with the advent of replacing milk with soda, osteoporosis has escalated because the acid, that's phosphoric and carbonic acid in carbonated beverages, literally steals the minerals out of bone. You'll have increased pain because when you're acidic, these minerals are nature's painkillers, are nature's muscle relaxers, they're nature's tranquilizers. You'll tend to retain fluid. The body in its infinite wisdom says, all right, I got this much container, I got this much acid, I can't get rid of the acid, I'll just increase the container. So we tend to retain fluid. Welcome, you all have to buy lunch because you're late, okay? So we tend to retain fluid. How do you know if you're acidic? You go for a walk and you can't make a fist. You can't get your ring off. You peel your sock off and your sock is still embedded in your ankle. And the next morning everything's back to normal, you're acidic. You'll produce a lot of mucus. Patients come in, and, I'm not acidic. Yeah, you are, you know. And, you know, when I started in practice, if you were acidic, they called it rheumatism. The problem is we don't have a CPT code for rheumatism, so they had to give it a name called fibromyalgia. and they gave it a fancy name so we could make a drug called Lyrica. So now we got a drug and a CPT code. So it's rheumatism, people. That's all it is. I remember I had a patient come to me and said, and I had already talked to her and explained she was acidic, and she came back in a week later and she said, "What did my doctor, I have fibromyalgia." And I go, "Yeah, I know." She goes, "What do you mean you know?" I said, "Look, you're acidic. I gave you something called Nat-Phos, a homeopathic remedy. Takes 1 to 3 weeks, just hang in there." And she's losing her mind. It's with fibromyalgia. I've read about it online and I'm destined for this awfulness. I go, "No." And 2 weeks later she was fine. And she didn't have fibromyalgia. Most people don't, by the way. They're just acidic. If you're alkaline, it's rare. The big thing here about alkalinity is if you get that 5'7", 19-year-old, 90-pound female, she's probably bulimic. When you vomit on your own, it will cause you to become alkaline. Dangerous kind of place to be. It can really mess with your heart and cause all kinds of problems. Any itis tends to, if you've got a lot of itises and the pH is really high, the pH I like to see I like to use urine because you can change the pH of your saliva with a thought. Tears of anger are acidic, tears of joy are alkaline. Think about that. You can change the chemistry of the body with a thought. Does that make you believe in God? It does me, Pretty fascinating. So I like to see the pH 6.4 to 6.8. Everybody says, well, shouldn't it be above 7? No, this is waste coming out of you. It should be acidic. You want the 6.4 to 6.8. Below it is acid. Above it, I consider alkaline. Now, from there, the next tier down, and you can, whatever you want to do, if you're really good at detoxification, put that the next tier. Start with pH, because if your pH is off, you will not get well. You will not get well. It's not going to happen. I don't care what therapy you do. Vitamins don't work like they should. Therapies don't work like they should. You're not going to get well. So you got to do the pH first. Now you can mess with these rest of them. The next tier is stress. And I had an attitude about this word because it was always the medical answer to everything. "Oh, honey, you're stressed, take Prozac," again. So one day I thought, stress is real. If it's real, there's a chemistry behind it. So I'm going to quickly teach you the chemistry of stress. Stress is interpreted by something called your hypothalamus. It's right in the middle of your brain, and part of a brain called the limbic system. And it talks to the pituitary gland. They talk things over and they send messages. To your thyroid, it's going to send your thyroid-stimulating hormone. To your ovaries, your follicle-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone. To your adrenal glands, it's going to send something called ACTH. And it's going to cause, first is going to be a fight or flight. It's just an adrenaline rush. Stand and fight or you run. But then it's going to produce cortisol, your stress hormone. And then it also produces the majority of your body's DHEA. This is our fountain of youth hormone. And people were taking this, men were taking this. The problem is DHEA makes testosterone, but it also makes estrogen. And you can't tell it which way to go. So I had all these guys when DHEA was first a pharmaceutical and became over the counter, they were taking 150 milligrams. I started people at 5 milligrams of DHEA. They were taking 150 and they were I'm gonna get muscle, I'm gonna get, and they got boobs, man boobs. We call them moobs in the business. Because it had gynecomastia, because it shunted to estrogen. And all their hair went away, their voices got higher, and they developed breasts. Because they didn't know what they were doing. This is not good. So the key to this whole thing when you're talking about stress is the cortisol to DHEA ratio. If that ratio is skewed, what happens? Well, what happens depends on the body part that takes the hit. If your brain takes a hit, all these are in my book, by the way. Am I pushing my book? Yes, I am. So if stress affects your brain, you're going to have a decreased production of serotonin and dopamine. Anxiety, depression, sleep disorders are going to just be in your ballpark. If it affects your stomach, there's a decreased production of hydrochloric acid. Medically, they treat this with proton pump inhibitors with decreased hydrochloric acid. They're giving babies that are burping up baby PPIs. Just let's step away from science and look at this logically. What are we allergic to in food? What is gliadin? It's the protein in wheat. Now, we don't have enough hydrochloric acid, which breaks down protein. And now the body says, that's not food, that's a foreign object. I'm going to build antibodies to it. These are where these food sensitivities are coming from. It's all the proteins that are out there. So we get dysbiosis, irritable bowel, gas, bloating, I'm going to skip pancreas for a second. Immune system, when this ratio is off, you suppress your immune system. You'll have increased infections. Yeast overgrowth is common. One of the things I teach, back in the early 80s, there are all these books, The Yeast Connection, Back to Health, all these. Theron Randolph was here in Chicago. They push all our problems are a result of yeast. Look, yeast is opportunistic. If you've been diagnosed with yeast, something else is going on in your body. You might want to treat the yeast, but realize it's there because you don't have a defense mechanism to keep it out of there. So it's opportunistic. It's going to grab you when you're down. More people are in the hospital today with fear than they are with COVID. Fear is immunosuppressive. There's a better word. It's called faith. The God I serve is not afraid of a damn virus. Sorry, just not trying to get political. I'm just got political though, didn't I? So, and then we got inflammation. Any itis can show up. Arthritis, bursitis, bronchitis, tendonitis, gastritis, sinusitis, dermatitis. Somebody shouted another itis. And then we have this thing called the pancreas. Stress in the pancreas is interesting because there's a battle that goes on at about 2 in the morning where cortisol and DHEA is trying to figure things out and insulin comes into play. And this insulin and cortisol are trying to battle. They're like the Israelis and the Palestinians. They got to live together and they can't. So what happens is they get in this pissing contest around 2 in the morning and weirdness happens. So we get this wacko situation when that ratio is off. The pancreas secretes insulin. Insulin affects carbohydrates. And it takes it either into energy production or puts it into storage. Now, under enough stress, you can literally not hardly eat anything and gain weight. So ladies, you say, well, I don't eat anything, and I still am gaining weight. Well, this is the reason why. It's this cortisol to DHEA ratio. We can also have an increase in our lipids, especially triglycerides. There are lies in medicine. Osteoporosis is a big lie. Cholesterol is a big lie. But you want to pay attention to triglycerides. If they're over 100, we've got some insulin-resistant stuff going on. And they don't even care about triglycerides. Bad idea. Now, when stress becomes chronic, the nervous system is invited in to help us cope with the stress. We have 2 parts of our nervous system. We have our peripheral nerves. You want to pick up a pen and write, your brain says do it. Then we have something called our autonomic nervous system. This is where we don't have voluntary control. It handles our breathing, our heart rate, our sweat glands. It's all done automatically. You don't think, gee, it's hot in here. Let me turn my sweating mechanism on. It's done automatically. And that autonomic nervous system has 2 parts. We have a slow down and a speed up. We have the parasympathetics, which quiet everything down, and the sympathetics, which speed everything up. Now, sympathetic dominance is the most common condition in ADD kids you'll ever see. Lights bother them. I promise you, ADD kids do not like driving at night in a car because the lights, they're doing this. I do iridology, and it's the hardest thing in the world to do iridology on an ADD kid because their pupils are huge, because there's this photosensitivity. It inhibits salivation, so you get dry mouth. It's a fear factor. Your heart rate accelerates. It's called a panic attack in medicine. And your digestion shuts down. Now, did the creator of the universe screw up? No. You're walking at Yellowstone Park and a grizzly bear is coming up the trail. Your body goes, sympathetic nervous system, I need your help. Your pupils get huge so you can see more. Your mouth gets dry, it's a fear factor. Your heart rate accelerates so you can pump more blood supply to your extremities and more blood supply to your head so you can move faster and think faster. And you shut your digestion down. You don't want to look at the grizzly bear and pizza or burger for lunch. Not a good time to have that thought, right? So this is a normal response. The problem today is there's no grizzly bear and we're sympathetic dominant. Easy to fix. It's a magnesium, potassium. Magnesium downregulates the sympathetic nervous system. Potassium upregulates your parasympathetic. All these are panic attacks. Kids don't want to go to school, fear of school. Look at their eyes. If their pupils are huge, they're sympathetic dominant. Give them magnesium, potassium, about 300 to 500 magnesium, 99 why they use 99 and not 100, I do not know. But all comes 99 milligrams of potassium. Remarkable success. Miracle cures. Yeah, so for sympathetic dominance, magnesium downregulates your sympathetic nervous system. So we want to quiet down the thing that speeds you up. Potassium upregulates your parasympathetic. So we want to speed up the thing that quiets you down. That make sense? I like magnesium bisglycinate is the best. Potassium, chelates are better. If it says albumin on the label, it's good. Albumin makes the best chelated minerals. They're married to something that gets into your system. They're live. So any questions on sympathetic dominance? Because it's common. All these panic attacks and all these drugs that are used for somebody that's sympathetic dominant, you wonder why they get worse when they take those drugs. Okay, now, so here's what I've seen. When we maladapt to stress, the HPA axis invites the sympathetic nervous system, which causes all the symptoms, and it acidifies your body. When you're sympathetic dominant, you become acidic. Kind of cool, isn't it? And when you're acidic, we had this slide previously. So we go to digestion. Very involved, could spend the next 4 hours talking on digestion. I could spend the next 4 hours talking on phase 1 liver detoxification. So what it's involved with is liver gallbladder. There's 2 phases. I'm not going to get into that. It's a fascinating study. You got hydrochloric acid. This is the problem with PPIs, proton pump inhibitors. Anemia, I get crazy. The patient will say, oh, my blood work's normal. My doctor says, fine, I'm just a little anemic. And I said, suppose I told you you were a little bit pregnant. So you're telling me you don't have the ability to carry oxygen in, and more importantly, you can't carry carbon dioxide out, which is going to acidify your body. I think anemia is kind of important, don't you? Well, doc, I think it is. Leaky gut, wow, love to talk on that. Glucose metabolism. And then this thing called homotoxicology. Heinrich Reckeweg, I studied this guy's work. I actually called him, and I wanted to get some books on homotoxicology. A big fancy doctor word. Homo means Homo sapien, toxic means poison, and ology is study of. So it's a study of poison in man. So I called him, $450 phone bill, talked all day, all afternoon. My wife at that time lost her fecal material over that phone call. There was no cell phones in those days. There was no computers in those days. Anyway, he had this interesting theory. We all start healthy, we all get poisoned, we all develop cancer. Fun guy to have at a party, don't you think? Reckeweg is coming over. Oh, I'm not coming. So where do the poisons come from? Well, it comes from the food we eat, the people we know, the thoughts we think, the fat we store, and the air we breathe. Now, Reckeweg said the first 2. I added the last 3. And he would agree with me if he were alive today. So he had this very interesting system, and it explains how we get sick better than anything else I've ever seen. So when a poison enters our body, our creator knew it was going to happen. He developed a system that said, poison, you don't belong here, I'm going to excrete you. You don't even know what's happening. Excretory phase. The next phase down, and how it goes there is the poison either gets so great it just whoops you, or your body and the poison keep each other in check, and for some reason your body is weak and you catch a cold. Now this non-toxic entity to the healthy state becomes toxic to the weakened state, and the body will react. What does that look like? Hives, fever, vomiting, diarrhea. All those are reactionary kind of things that are going through. If the poison goes deeper again, now the liver says, whoa, we got a problem here. I can't handle this poison. Tell you what, I'm going to take it, I'm going to set it over here. I'm going to put it in your ovary, and you're going to have polycystic ovarian syndrome. I'm going to put it in your uterus, and I'm going to have uterine fibroids. I'm going to put these lipomas. I'm going to build you some fat cells, because the body will store toxins in fat. It loves to store toxins in fat. Now you have what's called a biological division. There's a book by Oshman called The Matrix, which is amazingly boring, but really, really powerful. I mean, probably don't want to read it. Ignore that. Cut that from we'll have an 18-second gap like Nixon did. Anyway, if it crosses this lymphatic blocking mechanism, now the poison goes into your cells. He calls this the impregnation phase. What does that look like in the real world? A pap test comes back abnormal cells. And what did the doctor say? Oh, we'll check that in 6 months. And I'm thinking, I don't think so. I don't think that's a good idea. You just passed the major weapon system that the creator of the universe put in your body to prevent you from getting cancer. So the next step is the degenerative phase, lupus, diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, and you eventually get cancer. He was laughed at, he was ridiculed, he was ostracized from the medical world. He came up with this theory in 1936. A little ahead of his day, folks. There was no asbestos in those days. So how do you get rid of it? You got to support drainage. This is lymphatic drainage. This is why massage is so fantastic. This is why exercise, that's a drainage mechanism. You got to support the liver. Support phase 1, phase 2. Do not detoxify people today. We're too toxic of a world. You want to support the organs that handle detoxification. Constitutional support, if you're into Bach flower remedies, there's constitutional things there. If you're into miasms and homeopathy, I did 5-element acupuncture. You got to treat symptoms. There's times and places where I would send patients out for steroids because they're in so much trouble. We got to put out the fire. So there's a time and a place for medication. I don't have a problem with that when it's correctly instituted. And then there's cellular support. This was his cancer therapy, some fascinating stuff there. And then we got immunity. This is your acute infections, chronic infections, and of course your yeast overgrowth. And then we have a bullseye. So when these patients would come in, and I'd be taking their history and going, well, get out of my office. You are so above my pay grade. I'd take a breath. I'd fix their pH. I'd help them cope with stress better. I'd support their adrenals. I'd help their digestion. I'd help their mechanism of detoxification. I'd support their immune system. And these miracle cures occurred. Most fascinating thing. My successes were so greater than my abilities. I know there's a God because I ain't this smart. It just was a pleasure serving the creator of the universe in a healing way. Bye-bye bullseye. There's inflammation throughout this whole thing. So why I didn't have this one for inflammation? Because it's in every one of those levels. It's the buzzword in medicine today. The new buzzword is going to be stealth infections. You heard it here first. Next 5 years, everybody's going to talk about these stealth infections in our body. So back to our case study. Female, 45. All these things going on. All tests were normal. So what I did was I did a complete health history. I took an hour and a half with new patients. I was intense in my questioning. I reviewed labs. I did labs on patients. Orthopedic and neurological evaluation. I did facial diagnosis. That's what this is all about. I did iridology, and I measured the meridians of acupuncture electrically, and then I gave a report of findings. So Mark Hyman stated, don't name and blame, think and link. Medicine tends to name and blame it. Oh, honey, you're stressed. Take Prozac. How about your subclinical hypothyroid? You got hypoglycemia. Can't think at 10 and 2 and 4. Drink Dr. Pepper? No, it's a low blood sugar issue. So think and link. And why I love teaching this group of people is you think and link. You're not succumbing to the stupidity of name and blame. Pretty cool. That's why you guys are my peeps. So these were my observations. The pH of this gal's urine was 5. She's acidic. She woke between 1 and 3 every night. She had a deep crease between her eyebrows, redness and flushing in her cheeks, puffiness underneath her eyes, lines on the inside corner of her eyes downward, fullness and drooping eyelids, weight gain, abdomens, hip, buttocks, thighs, triceps. What are you going to do? Well, it's telling you what to do right here. And again, $35. If you buy the book this weekend, this comes with it. It's a $10 face map. So let's just kind of take it one at a time. This is the face map we're talking about. Notice right between the eyes, that's the liver. So her pH was 5, so I treated her for acidity. Deep crease between the eyebrows, that's a liver line. She woke between 1 and 3. In acupuncture, each meridian has a 2-hour time a day. Look at what is between 1 and 3. Liver. She had redness and flushing on her cheeks. That's a damp heat syndrome. She had an overgrowth of yeast in her system. She had yeast in her brain, actually. Puffiness underneath the eyes. It's a kidney deficiency disorder. She had lines. The lines we're talking about are right here. Those are the adrenal lines. She had fullness and drooping upper eyelids, like Russell Crowe does right there. That's Russell Crowe, just for the record. So that's right, that's this puffiness. Gallbladder. It's on the page here. And she had weight gain in abdomen, hips, buttocks, thighs, and triceps. She was estrogen dominant. So what did I do? Give her Prozac? No, I gave her Nat Phos. A bottle of 500 cost about $12. Take 6 of them twice a day, melt them on your tongue, your life will change. I put her on a good probiotic. I like this probiotic from Orthomolecular because it contains a good strain, plus it contains Saccharomyces boulardii, which is good for C. diff, Clostridium diff. So many people have problems. And I put them on a program I developed for my wife called Shape Reclaimed. So what the heck is that all about? Shape was birthed as a weight loss program. My wife gained some weight with menopause and lost her fecal material. And beautiful woman and intelligent, but it came down to how those blue jeans fit, and they weren't fitting good, and she wasn't happy. So she said, grab me and slam me against the wall, and my male-dominant brain thought, this is going to end good. And she says, you help everybody, but you're not helping me. So I said, all right, I have to understand this. I hate diets. I hate them. They're toxic. toxic, and they bring toxic thinking to people's minds. So I hate diets. So combination drop nutritional protocol, simple, effective, very, very safe program. So it's not a diet or weight loss. It's a practitioner monitored for accountability. We believe in shape of bio-individuality. Everybody is unique. You build a program to where they are. 100% real foods, nothing packaged. You're not going to buy anything. It's going to come in the mail. You're going to go to the store and shop the peripheral area. Don't shop in the middle. That's what man makes. God makes the food on the outside. Man makes the things on the inside. And we look for the underlying causes. I built Shape on two premises. One, all diets fail because all diets fail. Second, it can't be just metabolic. It's got to be something different. I thought it was the brain. Back to our stress, the hypothalamus pituitary. I felt that was the key, that weight problems were a brain problem. So I built a program around that. Now, then you got to ask, why do all diets fail? All diets fail because the brain got a message that it's starving. Atkins wanted you in large ketosis, which is starvation to the brain. And it's in the research. You can see it. So the guy comes in, 240 pounds, construction worker, gets on Atkins and blows it out of the water. Just does fantastic. 200 pounds, feels great. And what does he do? He eats a piece of bread. Feed me, Seymour. Feed me now. And he messed with what's called a set point. His brain says, you're 240, I'm going to keep you. That's what you've been, I'm going to keep you there. Now, you lost all the weight starving, so I'm going to bring you back up to the 240, but you starved yourself, so I'm going to add 20 more pounds. And he ends up at 260. Saw it every time with every diet. So we use a simple urine analysis to assess if the body is in any kind of starvation. We have some shape practitioners, I get it, in the crowd. So this quote I came up with, or my wife wrote it down. I must have said it at some point, but it's not about what you lose, it's about what you'll gain. It's total health. So shape balances the pH. It helps the body adapt better to stress. I realized that the product that I made, it's a homeopathic remedy. We call it nanomolecular because the FDA doesn't like homeopathy, but nanomolecular you can measure, so they're okay with nanomolecular. Same damn thing. I heard it best. Randy Travis says, you can't fix stupid, and you can't fix stupid. So I put things in there like Cali-Phos for the brain. I put in Nat-Phos for pH balance. Detox and digestion, I put in Lycopodium. I put in Chalcedonian Magus, which is a wonderful gallbladder remedy. I did some immune support things. And patients just simply got well. Because I let the body do the healing. I just got out of its way. I gave it a little direction and they got well. So what I'd like to do, because we have about 10 minutes left, would anybody like to do a facial diagnosis? You really want to do that? All right, come on up. This is Michelle, right? Kunzelman? Kunzelman. Italian, right? We talked about this already, right? Frisch is German. So there are 9 face shapes, okay? So if in the book, you're going to see these face shapes. So she's a very interesting face, and in fact, she's pretty square. Do we all agree it's a very square face? There's just squareness to it. So she's an iron face. So this is the 3 S's. They're strong, they're stable, and they're stubborn. Give her a job, she'll get it done. Persevere, take it to the end in things she's interested in. If she's not interested, screw it. Absolutely. But she's got some real narrow chin, so she's got some fire energy. So she's very sensitive. Probably a little too sensitive. So things, she'll get hurt. You know, sticks and stones break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Lie. It's the first lie we learned, first thing we learned. So she's very, very sensitive. Now that is good because she's a practitioner and she can tap into her strength, that sensitivity. But when I talk to this patient, I'll say, if you can get behind this, if you can take that determination and if you jump on this bandwagon, you will succeed. And she'll go, yes, I will. And I'll have success. Now you talk to me, bucketheads, we like a pat on the back. I know if I'm talking to me as a patient, I'm going to say, I know you got to think about this because we bucket faces have to think. We think all the time. We overthink. There's no book on earth that I haven't want to open. I love books, but I pat them on the back. If I have, let me find a good king face in the audience. Can you stand up and show us your face, please? We talked about you being a king. So notice the strong jaw. She's square, but there's such a stronger jaw than she has here. So she's a king face. So if she's coming to the office, I'm not going to talk about the weather. I'm not going to talk about sports. Because she wants to, can you help me? What's it going to cost? How long does it take? Let's go. Yeah, better, okay. So each face I wanted patient compliance. I wanted them to do what they didn't want to do. So I had to talk to them. I didn't want to be dancing the cha-cha and they're doing the waltz. Let's both do the swing instead. So patient communication is powerful. And how you say it and what you say is very important. And you can touch somebody or you can touch somebody. There is a big difference. When a patient says I'm better and a patient says I'm better, only one is better. Pretty fascinating stuff. So we'll go through the facial part. We have thinness to the eyebrows, to the outside. That's called a Hertog sign in Western medicine. It's a low thyroid indicator. She's subclinically hypothyroid, or maybe you are thyroid issue?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. So where are you in the birth order of the family?
Second one.
Second of?
2.
So this can also indicate a lack of sibling support. I don't have a thyroid problem, but she does not have sibling support. I love my brothers. I take a bullet for them. Did they support me in my childhood? No. My eyebrows tell you that, okay? She's really got fullness up in this area right here. That's gallbladder. So she's got real weak gallbladder. It's very full. And she doesn't have one. It's very full, so oftentimes, I was going to say that it's very full, oftentimes they've already lost it, and she already has. Now, part of the reason she lost it again is she tends to internalize anger. How do we know there's a gender specificity there? Well, for every female in prison, there's 280,000 males. The men externalize anger, women and pastors internalize it. So I remember I was going to a church and the pastor was having some digestive issues, and Linda says, what do you think? I said, he's about to lose his gallbladder because he can't show anger, not to the flock. So as we come through, she's got some discoloration in the inner canthus right here. She's got some low blood sugar tendencies, some hypoglycemia. This is the 10 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, where you get the kind of mopey-dopey kind of feeling. She's got these real nice creases right here. You'll see mine. Mine are as deep as you'll see. They're called Fa-Ling lines, F-A-L-I-N-G. Fa-Ling means purpose, and it indicates spiritual strength. She's got purpose and spiritual strength. I'm on this earth doing what my Heavenly Father wants me to do. I am the most blessed man you're going to ever look at in your life. I got put on this earth to do what I'm doing. I was really good at it, and I didn't know what I was doing. I just followed the promptings of the Holy Spirit when every patient came. We prayed every day in our office. We'd grab hands with the staff and we'd pray. Is it cheating? I'll cheat. If that's cheating, I'll do it every time. Every day. I had no problems with that. As we come down, she's got a little bit of a hook-shaped line right here. That's a tipped uterus. She's got a prolapse of her uterus. It's laying on her bladder, so she'll have to pee a lot.
Not really.
Really? Okay, good. It's not that tip, though. Usually it lays on the bladder.
Yeah.
She's got a little more of an indentation here than here. What was your relationship with your mom?
It was distant, maybe a
Yeah.
little bit distant.
She has some, so the motion of the lung is despair. So there's a little despair with regard to her mom.
She passed away too.
Oh, that can be the despair also. So, look, everything on the face, we all do face diagnosis. You, in the morning, you look at someone, don't you feel good today? What did you see that morning? Our book put some legs to it. So it's quite a simple system, but we all do facial diagnosis. We just, in our work, we do it in a way, because I wanted to help that lady, and I helped her incredibly. I was her 11th doctor, that girl that came in. And in 3 weeks, she was a different person. She lost 60 pounds, and it was just nothing short of miraculous. And the weight loss was a side effect of her getting well. I had patients come to me and say, Doc, I got to lose weight to get healthy. Time out. Change of thought. You got to get healthy to lose weight. Huge difference. Sounds like semantics. It's not. I could go on and on, but I won't. Okay? Hey, we got like 4 minutes. Anybody else want to come up? Right there. Yep. Do you have a garden?
Do I have a garden?
Yeah.
No.
You need to. You'll be healthier if you did.
I know. I agree.
Not the eating. You just need to put your hands in the air. She's an earth face. Bigger at the bottom, smaller at the top. She's very down to earth. She's very practical. That's who she is. Men that have this, they like dirty jokes. off color. They're earthy people. So she's a pretty classic earth phase. Great following lines, lots of spiritual strength, lots of purpose. There's hardly anybody I've seen here that doesn't have following lines. Ladies, I said to you, Botox those, I'll haunt you in your dreams. Was it Margie? Yeah, okay. Don't do that. I've seen people do facial things and they've changed their personality. Don't mess with God's plan. Don't do that. Bad idea. Puff up your lips, bad idea. Remember when, who's the gal in You've Got Mail? So cute, and then she did her lips. And she looked like a cartoon character. Meg Ryan. What the hell was she thinking? I don't know. Very kidney deficient. So underneath her eyes, it's dark. Do you see a little darkness there? So this is an inherited weakness. The Chinese don't have a word for genetics. They call it ancestral energy. She's got some weak ancestral energy. It governs bone, so she's going to be prone to arthritis. There's probably a family history of arthritis.
My grandma had it really bad.
Yeah. So there's things you can do to prevent that. She's kidney deficient. Let's tonify the kidneys. Let's strengthen the kidneys. There's great things in acupuncture. Don't drink real iced drinks. People that are kidney deficient, like she and I, we ice our ice. We love ice. Or we hate cold altogether. But cold is an enemy to the kidney. You want to not eat Morton salt. Sorry, I know it's made here, because it's 4% of your body's mineral needs. You want to do Salina Natri Celtic sea salt with 78% of your minerals. Kidney deficiency people have mineral deficiencies. And what do minerals do? Nature's painkillers, muscle relaxers, and tranquilizers. The tension she has in her upper back is unreal. I watched her walk up doing that. So that's why getting her hands in the earth, she's touching earth. There's a Mudwise thing here that's fascinating. I don't know much about it, but the booth right across from our booth, they do this Mudwise thing. But they're literally putting they're putting minerals on your body. The skin's a two-way membrane. This is brilliant. I love it. It's great. So what else can we tell about you? Very, very low blood sugar issue. Definite gallbladder issues. Does not digest fats well. The gas and bloating you have is, if you just stop dairy totally, you'll lose 10 pounds. That's all you got to do is just don't do dairy for 3 weeks. 10 pounds will come off your body, which you will like a lot. She does have some damp heat in her lungs. She's got some fatigue issues. She'll sigh a lot. That's real common in the lung deficient person when it gets real involved. She's actually pretty healthy, so she's not going to have a lot of the symptoms that she could have because she has a healthy mental attitude plus this incredible spiritual strength. There's 3 levels of health. There's a physical level. I'm good at that. There's a mental, emotional. Nobody's good at that. Okay, just saying. And then there's a spiritual level, which outweighs the other 2 10 to 1. So spiritual strength can carry the other 2 up. That's why I believe in healing, and we can do it. Got a little bit of, this corner of her lips right here, there's some lines. That's a lack of hydrochloric acid, so she's not breaking down protein very well at all. So gas and bloating can be an issue if she eats improperly. So that's kind of you. Thank you for your face.
Thank you.
Awesome. So any questions in the 1 minute we have left? Anybody have a question? This is great. I've totally confused you. And yes, ma'am. It's hard to try to quit. I left St. Louis. I live in northern Wisconsin, and I was giving a talk at a church on the difference between men and women, which was hilarious. That's why I'm the doctor, as I said. And somebody came up to me and said, "I got this, this, and this," and I'm looking at it and I go, "I can fix this." I said, "Sure, I'll see you." So, and I don't want to start a practice because I saw 50 patients a day on an average, and that's 7.5 minutes per patient. And I had a waiting list of 6 months to get into me. So he said, "Well, you can't give quality care." Well, tell it to my 50 patients in a day. So she came, and she didn't leave my driveway, and her best friend called me. So it just takes off. So I do facial diagnosis. There's a thing you can sign up. I think it's $99, and I can do a complete facial diagnosis. I'll call you and go through everything. And we can talk to you at the booth about that. But the book, everything I talked about here really is in the book. So we can kind of cover that. So no, I'm not in practice anymore, but nobody wants to leave. And my patients from St. Louis don't let me quit. I have calls all the time from them. But it's been great. Thank you. What a wonderful problem.